Tonight, on Life of a Scrambler, Jacob makes some art. Josh takes a mud nap. And things get very, very moist.
We last left our adventurers at the sleepy old gold town of Nundle, and as dawn broke on day 3, our adventurers faced a new adversary: rain. Undeterred, they fortified themselves with warm donuts and steaming coffee before embarking towards Hanging Rock Lookout. Despite the mist-shrouded landscape, they pressed on, their spirits buoyed by the thrill of exploration. Their journey led them through pine forests, dodging wildlife up through the legendary Thunderbolt's way to Uralla for a brief respite. The day's crescendo came with a ride down the breathtaking Waterfall Way, where man and machine were tested against the elements. Finally, our intrepid riders, now resembling creatures of the deep, arrived at their Bellingen lodgings. Though soaked to the bone, their adventurous spirits remained unquenched, a testament to the allure of the open road and the resilience of those who dare to travel it.
Yep, day 3 definitely brought a new challenge: rain. But that's nothing a few warm donuts and a coffee couldn't fix before saddling up and pointing the bikes towards Hanging Rock Lookout.
Not that we could see much, but it was still a great piece of Australia to visit while we had the chance. Last night we got a hot tip from our fellow adventure riders, so we ventured forth, where we enjoyed some wide open gravel roads, winding through the peaceful plantation forests.
Initially, I was worried how the tyres on the 1200 would handle the wet, especially off-road. But I found if I set the traction control to off-road, it actually made things really manageable, and I felt really confident. We took our time and had a bit of fun exploring, but we had a lot of ground to cover to get to our destination. We had some close calls dodging kamikaze kangaroos, but we managed to run the gauntlet and made it to Uralla for a bite to eat, where Jacob sniffed out another Aussie tradition.
Delightful.
After copping a thorough soaking so far, and the afternoon forecast looking a little bleak,
It's gonna rain!
I started to eye off Jacob's waterproof pants with envy, so we decided to stop in at Supermoto in Armidale to pick up some fresh waterproof pants, which was a very good call considering the forecast. It made the next few days a little more bearable.
Luckily, as a point of contention throughout the trip, not only did the 900 Tiger have heated grooves, but it also had a toasty warm heated seat, which was a nice extra touch on the cold mornings. They are available on the 1200, but with an accessory pack that JB's bike didn't have, even though it had the buttons and the lights on the screen which would suggest otherwise.
We were off along the amazing Waterfall Way, an absolute dream road of perfect tarmac, twisties and plenty of room to get around the slower traffic. Unfortunately for us though, the rain seemed to be intent on testing both us and the bikes, increasing intensity to almost monsoonal proportions.
We arrived at our accommodation in Bellingen resembling a pair of drowned rats, catching the eyes of many locals sitting at the main bar, enjoying a cold beer in the historic pub. Thankfully our room had heaters, and we had a large deck outside the room to try and get everything dry.
Those heaters were really something, hey Jacob. He had the brilliant idea of turning our gloves into leather crisp art when we stuck them in between the heater fins, and promptly forgot about them. Must have been too keen to get on with our nightly ritual of beers and recapping the day.
Day 4 dawned with improved but still rainy weather. After a slight mishap whilst drying out their gear overnight, our gloveless adventurers set off towards Coffs Harbour for some much-needed new gloves. Their journey then took them through twisting mountain roads and into uncharted forest trails. The Tigers proved their mettle on challenging terrain, from slick bedrock to muddy paths. A highlight of the day was the Old Glen Innes Road, also known as Old Grafton Road, featuring exciting tunnel rides through large puddles. The day concluded in deep water, where our adventurers found comfortable lodging at the rustic Longhorn Bar and Grill, complete with special parking for their trusty steeds.
Waking up the next day, the weather looked to have slightly improved, from an absolute downpour with flood warnings to just normal rain, which was great.
Looking over the bikes in the morning, I could see signs of its long ride in the rain. I could see water starting to fog over the indicator lights, and turning on my bike, there was clearly some water in the switches as my screen decided to become unresponsive and start to have a mind of its own. To make matters worse, after my attempt at drying gloves the night before, we were in desperate need for new ones, as they became a little crispy. Some route research over breakfast had us going into Coffs Harbour to collect some new gloves and then head through some lovely mountainous twisties and into some unknown forest trails.
Now, for most of this trip, we had rough ideas of what roads and the general conditions of them beforehand would be like just from reading posts online, but this road was an unknown.
We decided that although we weren't sure that the roads even connected, on 3 out of 4 maps I checked, it looked promising, so we thought it was worth a shot. It was raining, it was wet, but we were not only keen to save a few hours, but also to explore the unknown. We headed off through this forest track, and for the most part, it was a lovely rainforest dirt road.
Yeah, for the most part. There were a few sections in there where the rain had washed away the surface layer, leaving some smooth bedrock underneath. And even though the tyres on the 1200 weren't really made for this kind of riding, with enough speed and power.
Speed and power. Speed, 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 speed. Real speed. Ramming speed. Raw, naked speed. Speed, speed, speed is speeding. Speed and power.
The mighty 1200 handled it like a walk in the park.
Thankfully, this road actually did follow through, and we were able to make it up to one of my favourite roads in northern New South Wales.
Yeah, let's take a guess at why this was Jacob's favourite road.
Yeah, I'm not even going to slightly argue with that one. Happy as a pig in mud, we made our way up the range to Deepwater, with a lovely place to stay at the Longhorn Bar and Grill.
Yeah, this place really makes you feel like you're at home in the country. Stone buildings, fireplaces, saddles on the roof, cattle brands on every wood surface, and a bunch of the nicest people you'll ever meet. What more could you want for $50 a night?
I know, right? It even had special undercover bike parking right outside the room. Nothing but the best for these big cats.
After a much needed hot shower and fresh set of clothes, we settled in for our nightly recap over a couple of cold ones and a mammoth pizza.
As our intrepid riders embarked on their final day, the weather gods decided to throw one last curveball their way. With dark clouds looming and the smell of rain in the air, our dynamic duo set off early, determined to conquer whatever Mother Nature had in store. Little did they know, their journey would involve tackling mud-slicked trails, dancing with rain-soaked roads, and even a face-off with the legendary rabbit-proof fence. But fear not, for our trusty Tigers were more than up for the challenge. Their impressive fuel range allowing our heroes to focus on the adventure at hand rather than constantly hunting for petrol stations. It was a day of mud, mayhem, and marvelous machines, proving once and for all that when the going gets tough, the Tigers get going.
On our final day, the forecast was looking grim yet again.
It's gonna rain!
But we had no other choice. We had to get cracking and just finish off the trip. We tackled the rabbit-proof fence and some pretty sketchy river crossings, but the Tigers just kept going strong. And their fuel range was a game changer. We could focus on the adventure without worrying about how much we had left in the tank. Oh, and yeah, I may have found the limits of my off-road tyres with a quick slide in the mud. Nothing major though.
It was a great opportunity to compare riding the Tiger 900 on some roads I've ridden other bikes on. My biggest takeaway? My Norden needs better suspension because this 900 Tiger is absolutely amazing. Whoever had this bike before me has set this suspension up brilliantly, and both fast and slow over erosion mounds, rocks, sand and mud, this thing was compliant as a well-trained cattle dog.
With the final stretch of off-road behind us, we faced a daunting sight ahead. The mountain range crossing stood between us and home, wrapped in the darkest storm clouds yet. The road was a treacherous mix of steep climbs and hairpin turns, with fallen branches scattered across our path. Adding to the fun, we had to dodge trucks running with no lights, and, most concerning, a group of bikers coming the other way, frantically waving at us to tell us something. It could have been to turn back.
We spoke through our comms about what it could be, and judging by the road, the types of bikes going the other way, we had the assumption it was water over the road. But we were on adventure bikes, and we were on an adventure, so we pushed forward.
And luckily for us, when we came across water, we didn't even have to get our feet wet, because as we rolled up to the water crossing, another adventurous traveller was ankle deep and waved us through. This kind of obstacle was no hassle at all for the Tigers, so we just took our time, carefully pushed through, and we were rewarded with a short respite as we filled up the bikes for the final dash home.
The Tigers had now proven themselves to be an excellent travelling companion. Their comfort levels between the seat, the windscreen and the technology really helped make these long, uncomfortable wet stretches less unbearable.
All fueled up, we were ready for our final push towards Brisbane. Although we'd bonded with the bikes, the call of a warm shower and dry jocks was too appealing for us to waste any time on this last leg.
As our weary travellers approached their destination, the rain finally relented, as if Mother Nature herself was conceding defeat to these two-wheeled warriors. The weather gods had acknowledged their tenacity with a respectful nod, saying, "Well played, gentlemen. You've earned this moment of respite." And so, with rising spirits, our heroes pressed on toward journey's end. The mighty Tigers, now caked in more mud than your average pig farm, soldiered through with the determination of a postman on Christmas Eve. As they rounded the final bend, the city skyline emerged through the mist like a mirage in a very wet desert. JB, looking more like a drowned rat than a motorcycle adventurer, shouted through his comms, "We've made it! We've bloody made it! My jocks are so wet I could drown a roux on a tin roof." Jacob, equally drenched but grinning like a madman, bellowed back, "I can't feel my fingers, my toes, or anything in between. But wow, these Tigers have proven themselves. Who needs a boat when you've got British engineering?" As they pulled into their final destination, steam rising from their rain-soaked gear, our duo resembled two soggy scarecrows. But there was no denying the glint of triumph in their eyes. They'd conquered mountains, rain, mud, kamikaze wildlife, and questionable route choices, all in the name of adventure. One couldn't help but wonder, was this really the end of their adventure? Or merely the soggy prologue to their next great escapade? Only time, and perhaps a few more mad ideas over a pint, would tell. Either way, thus ends our traveller's epic tiger adventure. Or does it?
Just kidding. We couldn't leave without giving the bikes a proper workout in our favourite off-road paradise, the Glasshouse Mountains. Given we'd had plenty of wet conditions, our intent was to try out the braking, ABS and off-road modes in some drier circumstances. So, after a warm shower and drying our gear the night before, we headed out for some fun and highly scientific testing before sharing our final thoughts.
The Glasshouse Mountains is also a beautiful place to reflect on the last few days riding with these amazing machines. Absolutely. It was great to come to a familiar playground for both of us and ride these beautiful machines on roads that we were familiar with, without any of the time constraints of travel to keep us from properly testing out the bike.
Agreed. It was a great spot to test the abilities of the bikes in off-road and off-road pro modes and how they affect the braking, traction and suspension. After a few hours of testing, the standout thing that impressed us both was that in off-road mode you can grab a handful of the front brake and the bike won't lock the front wheel. It's an awesome feature if you need to stop in a hurry. I could also feel the differences in traction control between off-road and off-road pro modes, with the latter being much easier to set into a power slide, but also the former being much more forgiving in changing road surfaces, where you can easily get caught out on a big bike. It was easy enough to change between the throttle and engine maps. Some you can just change on the go by selecting in the menu and backing off the throttle, but others need a quick stop for a second push of a few buttons and then you're back on your way.
So, what's my verdict on the Tigers? If I had my own, there would definitely be some different tyres on it to handle some of the wet off-road sections a bit better, but overall they're comfortable, they're powerful, and the suspension felt like it could handle just about anything. The light steering made it feel capable in everything from urban traffic, and it still held up really well across rutted country roads or high-speed tarmac. Are they perfect? No, but they're built to do most things pretty well, just not perfectly.
Yeah, I agree with Josh on this one. They are excellent bikes. They have their strong points and they have their downsides. Water in the electronics is a big one for me. Would I sell my bike to buy a Tiger? No. But if I'd done this trip before buying my current bike, would I give the Tiger more consideration? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the Tiger is the bike for riders that want to cover a lot of Ks, where the roads are varied but still fully formed. I wouldn't be taking this on a Simpson Desert crossing or something like that, but for a lap of Australia, these bikes are great for sitting at high speeds with the option of covering some more adventurous gravel roads if you're that way inclined.
Agreed. I think the 900 is definitely a different bike to the 1200, and I'd feel more comfortable taking it further off the beaten track, similar to my old Tenere 700 or current Norton 901, but definitely not the tracks I take my KTM 500 on.
Yeah, for me, the comfort and extras are really tempting, but I do love the look and feel of the Scrambler. If I could have both, I definitely would, but my own personal preference still leans towards the Scrambler 1200 just because I love the looks. That's one thing that I can't get past. It's a beautifully designed piece of machinery.
There you have it, folks. That's the final verdict from our adventurers. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, as it's taken over 6 months and a lot of work from the team to pull together. If you like this video, you'll no doubt love the bonus content. There's lots of helpful guides, tips and tricks. So check it out over at JB's Patreon using the link below.
I've got a couple more DIY and adventure videos coming soon, so make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Good night.